We're breaking down anything and everything Utica City FC related. This is the Keeper's Corner podcast with your hosts, Matt Sterling and Brandon Brooks. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome to another edition of the Keeper's Corner podcast. Matt and Brandon are back, ringing in the new year with the 6-0 Utica City Football Club. Brandon, how you feeling after that one?
Not so loud, okay? It's just after the new... I'm just kidding. I mean, it's great. It is absolutely a fantastic feeling going into the new year with... I mean, really, I got two things off my Christmas list, so that feels great. You know, being able to stay undefeated, getting to see some action out of Tayu. Life's good. We're riding the gravy train at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the repetitive part of the schedule has finally come to pass, which we'll talk about more later in this episode.
Yes, sir.
That's 4 out of 6 games against Harrisburg done for the season. And
only
they did
2 left.
They did it in the same way we've seen the past 2 games against this team go, with double-digit scoring. 13-7 final score, which it was not that close for most of the game.
I mean, not to jump ahead, but considering one of the literally the last goal of the game came from Harrisburg they had it at 14:59, but it was a buzzer beater. That was right at the buzzer.
It was quite literally cross the goal line with, I want to say, like 0.1 seconds on the clock when I ran it back.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, this one, not a whole lot to say besides a mostly dominant performance from Utica until late in the game, which, I mean, that's how you get the stat that tells the story for being, is how dominant Utica was.
Yep.
For a huge stretch of this game. They scored 8 goals unanswered.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever venture a glance at the actual stat sheet or the summary for the game, I mean, it's just Harrisburg, which I believe that's the first game this season we've started down.
Yes, that is the first time this year that Utica has conceded the first goal.
So that was a shock to the system. I was a little bit worried after that happened. Mm-hmm. And then they squashed that worry real fast. Literally 50 seconds later to just tie it up and just run away with it. I mean, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And it's not like it was all just one person either.
No.
I mean, we got some great action. You know, again, one of the things that I wanted to see, I mean, granted, it wasn't exactly a dominant performance, but we did get a hat trick out of Tayu, which was awesome to be able to see that, be able to see him get some goals as Philly and now Big Z exclaimed, the king got to wield his mighty scepter. And he finally got to do it at home. The only other time he scored was in Baltimore. And so the fact that we were able to finally see something in front of a home crowd was really nice. I mean, his first goal was fantastic. The assist off of Keaton, Keaton hits it. It gets deflected back. Tayu gets it. Done. I mean, that was just
cleaning it up.
That was so clean. But I mean, besides Frank, I mean, we got to see a goal from Tim, which was great seeing him back on the field. Got to see Superman sighting twice. Got to see some Nilton. I'm sure you're going to bring it up, so I'm probably stealing your thunder. But finally got to see a first career goal from Belliard, which was an awesome thing that he got that at home. And Keaton as well. I mean, I almost said, "Oh yeah, we got a goal from Joey." Oh, wrong team. But no, it was just. I mean, it was a great game on paper.
Yeah. For about 50 of the 60 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Which I guess brings us to play that changed the game. Do you have one?
If I had to pick one, because I'll be honest, it's a little bit hard with this one. Something that we talked about just before this is how when you have a one-sided game like this, it's very difficult to pick out anything specific because it's kind of gets on the boring side when it's a blowout this big. But if I had to pick one, I would say the one that really hyped up the crowd and kept everyone in it. I would say that had to been the Tim goal. I mean, there really wasn't anything else spectacular this game. But anytime you have a Timmy goal, I mean, you're going to have a huge pop from the crowd. And that's obviously exactly what happened. And he had a couple, he had his almost header that, I told him after the game, I'm like, you weren't on the ground. You're not going to be able to hit those. You're not going to be able to hit the header unless you're on the ground. So we got a good chuckle out of that. And then, oh man, I don't remember who it was, but somebody went for a flying knee, that tried to pick up one of the goals that didn't end up happening, but it either got stopped by the goalie or he was just behind it. But that was another really exciting play that everyone really got behind. I mean, I don't even remember which play it was, but I mean, I almost ate a soccer ball. So, I mean, there was that too, that got me kind of in the game. Lady 2 people down from me literally got a soccer ball right to her, and I ended up catching it after it hit him. So I mean, though there was some interesting stuff in the game, but it overall it was a textbook win, and so it ends up not being a super interesting game to watch. Sorry, long-winded, but
no,
to basically come back to that, but
the crowd and players had kind of tuned out by the end of it.
They really had.
And, you want to talk about what changed it is when they pulled Coughlin. That signaled the kind of, all right, let's get him some rest. Let's keep him protected. And after that, Harrisburg went on a run to end things. Francis got his second and third on the day. Panton scored, and then DePrima with the literal buzzer beater to end the game.
Yep. Yeah. They definitely, I mean, we knew it was all for nothing. I mean, there was no way that they were making up at that time 10 goals in 7 minutes or 10 minutes. It was about 9 minutes at the time. I mean, sure, maybe if we literally just stood there and did absolutely nothing for 10 minutes, yeah, sure, they probably would get it. But
which we almost did which did do for stretches. Yeah,
for a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, it was just that really leads me into what needs to change, and that is finishing games. You have to close it out. You can't just walk to the finish line. And there were players walking on the field while the ball was live. There were bad line changes. I'm sure you saw it, like just guys getting confused. And a couple times there were only 4 guys on the turf for Utica. Ball watching. One of the goals, I think it was the third one from Francis, you had all 5 of Utica's guys out there on the same half of the defensive third.
Yep.
So when the ball came back across, there was no one there to clean it up.
Right.
Just ball watching, bad defensive effort.
There's only one person that I actually felt that they're walking while the play was live was actually justified. And that was Mo. Mo seemed like he took a really hard hit in the second, I want to say, because he was down when one of the goals was being celebrated. He was just down on the turf, just in a bad way, and he limped off the field after that. He did come back, but he was slower. So I 100% understood why he kind of hung back for literally the rest of the game and just kind of walked the turf.
Yeah.
I totally understood it and just hope he's okay.
Yeah. If it is something where he's injured in that kind of game, why are we even running him back out there?
Yeah.
Just let him sit, get healed.
Yep.
But you got to close it out. You can't keep playing, where you just, yes, you beat them. You handled the team that you should beat, but this should have been an 8 or 9 goal victory, not a 6 goal. And where goal differential counts, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, in most cases, hopefully we never have to worry about a goal differential, but I went back and I watched the specific play you were talking about where we were all on one side of the field, and it was actually we got drawn to the other side of the field by Francis.
Yeah. Okay. They brought the ball over there, but everybody went over there. No one stayed in position. No one.
He was unmarked. He was literally unmarked. I don't remember which number he is. It had to been. If it wasn't. Yeah, I was going to say if it wasn't Dominic, and obviously it wasn't Danny. It was the Roshan, the Panton goal. Yeah, he was completely unmarked. So. And yeah, okay, I understand. By that point, I mean, it's midway point of the fourth quarter. You're up at that time, 8 goals. I get your mind might be checking out, but you can't, especially against some of the teams we got coming up. I mean, if you do that, it's not going to be 1 or 2 goals you give up. It's going to be 5 or 6.
Yeah, and this was a chance to kind of silence some critics because they're only beating up on Harrisburg and Baltimore, and you had a chance to just have a dominant performance on both sides of the ball, and you let it up. You
dominant,
look at
unanswered performance.
Yes, and you look at it. I pulled up the scoreline from that 22-5 Monterey Dallas game. Dallas didn't score the final 7.5 minutes. Monterey scored 4 times. It was 18-5, and then Monterey just kept pouring it on.
Yep.
They didn't let up.
Yep. And that's what I mean, you and I have wanted to see that from this team for ages, where it's just never let up, pouring on the just pouring salt in the wound at that point. And it just seems like we have a tendency to let off. And after the second Francis goal and we called a timeout, I literally kind of looked over at our huddle. Yeah. And I was looking at Everton, and I mean, it looked like he was just kind of had his hands on his hips and just wasn't saying a word. Like, you guys know what you're doing. You guys know what you're doing wrong. Clean it up. Like, I feel like he didn't even have to say a word.
Absolutely. And Anything else you think needs to get cleaned up before this next game against Milwaukee?
Oh, not particularly. I mean, the defense felt good. I really like what I'm seeing from Hundelt, from even some people that aren't on defense that are still defending. Good performances from Keaton. Like I said, Mo is always a great one to have back there. Nelly, I mean, I've talked his praises to death at this point. And then on offense, I mean, we've got, we've had some good performances, not only from veterans, but from even some of these newcomers. I mean, Belliard is awesome to watch. I love watching him on the turf. He just, I don't know. He's very fluid, and I like what I'm seeing from him, as well as, Cole Stevens. I'd love to see more from Timmy. As far as I'm aware, I also believe that, we should be closer to full strength for the Milwaukee game from discussions I've had. So that will be a welcome addition as well. But overall, just don't let off the gas. That's all we need. Just like we've been saying for years at this point, just don't let off, and we'll be fine.
Yep. That'll hopefully fix some things. Hopefully, it really is kind of like the missing piece is closing. What's your positive takeaway out of this one?
I mean, I'm just going to, honestly, the obvious one, just we beat the people we were supposed to. 3 times in a row. No, I'm sorry. 4 times in a row for one, 2 times in a row for the other. We've beaten the people we're supposed to. There's not a whole heck of a lot more to say other than that. Huge game. Again, getting action from Taiyu. Getting to see some more from these newer guys, the legacy guys. Decent performance from Andrew, getting a 76% save. I mean, that's still a great save percentage. He's been consistent. Seeing Wilkin being able to get on the field, I think the overall, just keep doing what you're doing in 90% of the respects of the game, I think is a huge positive takeaway. And likewise, we're 6-0. I mean, like, people might say, oh, look who you're going against. We're beating the people we're supposed to beat. We said it last time. We're saying it again. Beating who we're supposed to beat. Now's the interesting part of the season.
Yes. Yeah. It finally gets things started for us.
Anything different from you?
I mean, the positive is, I see the offense is clicking at levels that we haven't seen before.
Yep.
You have Keaton and Ronaldinho are both tied for 6th or 7th in the league with 12 points. Ronnie's 9 goals are top 3. Keaton's 8 puts him just behind that. Mo's 8 assists are top 3. Frank has cracked the top 10 with 6 assists. We haven't seen Gordy in a little bit, but given the fact that he did a lap on the turf with the flag during the ball drop, I fully expect him to play Thursday. You wouldn't have him out there. Like we talked about it last week. Said, don't be surprised if they rest him one more game to make sure he's healthy.
And he warmed up with him too. Yeah. And we had a talking about that hair.
Yeah. Did you?
Yeah. When I saw that blonde hair, I'm like, didn't we just talk about this
You probably put it back in his head because last week on Instagram he had a post in his story. Should I go back? Should I bring back the blonde hair? And
no.
65 to 70% said no. It's like, all right, we got Diet Blue or something now because you're looking a little too Slim Shady, circa 2002.
Well, listen. When I'm not going to say why he said he wanted to diet, but all I can say is I understand his justification for doing it, but I'm not going to say what it was because that's his story to tell, not mine.
Okay. Well, then we'll have to get him back on here to tell that story.
But I liked his reasoning. I'll just put it that way.
Okay. Take a second, quick talk about the crowd on Sunday. Because that was the largest crowd we've had of the season, just shy of 3,500.
Yeah.
And I know it was a blowout, but boy, was it quiet in there in the second half.
Yeah, I think.
And yeah.
Just like the players, I really felt like the fans either had other things on their mind or had also checked out, which, again, when it's that much of a blowout, it's hard to stay super invested when it's like, oh, we got another goal. Yay! It's like we have 10 ahead of the other team now. Or, the other team scores a goal. It's like, aw.
Yeah.
Well, they're still, 7 behind. So it's hard to, it's really hard to, even for me, we were down in the beer garden. I mean, we're right there. I understand it being difficult to stay invested. But it would still, I mean, obviously we should still be cheering for our team to keep them going. Yeah. Which just didn't happen. So
now, like when I started getting the Utica chant going during the penalty kill, it took way too long to get the crowd into that. And even longer for the drum to get involved.
Yep. Which at that time, I believe the drum was literally right behind me.
Yeah, it was in the beer garden.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was New Year's Eve and people were thinking about, okay, what do I have to do after this? What do I have to do to get my plans in motion after this game? Because, obviously there was many people probably going to the bash that they had. What was it? Bag Square. I didn't end up going to that.
No, it was on Genesee Street.
Genesee
closed up everything and headed straight home.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have any plans of going to 72 after the game. And we ended up going anyway, just because we wanted to be able to see the guys, wish them a happy new year, congratulate them on the win. But we also had plans of our own that, we had to get home and go get some last second groceries and things like that. So, I mean, I'm sure that we were not a unique case, and there was a lot of people that just had other things on their mind. And when it's that much of a blowout, it allows for fans to not be as invested. I'm not saying, hey, make it be a closer game next time, guys, and we'll be able to cheer for you more. That shouldn't be how it is.
Yeah.
But it did. I don't know. It just, nobody was invested in that game in the second half. No, nobody.
It felt like it felt almost like we were getting beaten.
Yeah.
It was dead. The air was dead. The energy was deflated.
It felt like the scores were reversed.
Yes.
And we were getting beaten that bad. And we had just given up.
It was apathy central because there were some calls that 50-50, you know, I mean, it's a Brian Miller officiated game. We're just lucky to get out of it without a serious player injury. But even the crowd didn't really let the refs hear it. And normally that's a guarantee in Utica.
Okay, listen. Some people let the refs know how they felt, okay?
Well, yes.
I know a couple people that were very close to me that were giving the refs plenty to think about.
Look, I watched Brian Miller miss a handball in front of his face from 5 feet away. Yeah. And then when the goal went in, I was like, are you sure? Because that was 10 feet away. Are you sure that it actually went in? You can't see a handball. Like,
I mean, there was one goal that almost nobody reacted to.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it was the one that kind of bounced in off of Glorioso. And
was that the Frank one that went the header up in the air?
Yeah, and it like Glorioso caught it in the bottom corner, and
Williamson tried to like chest it to Glorioso and missed. Yeah. It was a rough day for Williamson. He had 2 go in off of him for Utica.
Yes, he did. He was in a good mood before the match because he came over and was talking to Huber and whatnot, and it's like, yeah, he was I believe it was him. Yeah, because we had a couple of pairs. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking of the right person. Yeah. He was over talking to Huber, and I mean, he was doing all right before the game. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, he had 2 own goals that, that's a killer.
Yeah.
So yeah, just overall, it's kind of felt like nobody really had a good game, even though it was a great game for Utica, just not a good game.
Yeah, it is what it is. And we get a break from Harrisburg and Baltimore, and the next time we're back at the Odd will be 3 weeks from the holidays. You won't be tired out from dealing with your family and everything and running around and going here and wrapping presents there and thinking about getting out there to party it up until the ball drops. Because I didn't make it to midnight last night.
You want to hear a funny story?
Sure.
That I'm sure that some people appreciate. So I didn't watch the ball drop. I did stay up till midnight, did not watch the ball drop. Instead, I did one of those start the movie at X time and at midnight something will happen at the ball drop. Did the Ghostbusters 2 one.
Okay.
Start the movie at exactly 10:27:52. Started it right on the mark. And got to the part, and I'm getting all nervous because I'm like, I have the ball drop from one of the news outlets on my phone going, and I'm like, there's still like a minute and a half left, and I'm like, it's getting real close to the scene, and then at exactly 1 minute left, the scene happens, and I'm like, what the heck? I did start it at the exact time. Yeah, come to find out, their stream was a minute behind on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I've had that happen because we have YouTube TV, and I'll be watching it count down, and I'm like, why does my phone already say midnight? Why am I getting Happy New Year's text before the ball is dropped?
Yeah. So I at first I was super angry, and then I was elated when I was like, I did it. But that's how we kind of celebrated instead of watching the ball drop. Is
nice.
Had Dr. Peter Venkman wish us a Happy New Year right at the buzzer. So that was cool.
There you go.
Little side story, not related to soccer. So y'all can just tune me out for the past couple minutes.
As we talked about, this breaks up our Harrisburg and Baltimore stretch of the season. Next 4 games are on the road. They start Thursday at Milwaukee. This is the first time that we're seeing Milwaukee since the Eastern Conference semifinals last year. Which, Milwaukee advanced because of a 2-1 mini game. Yes. But we all know Milwaukee advanced before they got bounced in the next round by Baltimore. Utica lost again in a mini game to a score of 2-1.
Yeah, it would be nice to get some sweet revenge at this point. So I'm really hoping we can pull out a win against Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the train going.
Especially because since moving from Syracuse, I didn't look back at that, but since coming to Utica, Utica has yet to win at the UMW Panther Arena. We go there, we lose.
Yep.
A couple of them have been close, but we lose.
Yes.
Milwaukee expected to be a contender this year, and they are off to a bit of a slow start.
Mm-hmm.
They're 3-2-1. One of their wins was in overtime, where they barely eked past St. Louis 2-1 to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
Their goal differential is only +5, which is kind of crazy when you consider they have Ian Bennett, Derek Huffman, Mario Alvarez, Marcio Leite, and then they added Ricardo Carvalho, Correa from Utica, and Breno Oliveira, another Florida guy, in the offseason.
Something else to think about.
Sorry. Yeah.
They only just got a positive goal differential.
Yeah.
Because you said +5, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, they had +6 on the sidekicks because they won 7-1 against the sidekicks. So that literally is what pushed them into positive.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, in their other previous games, they had a -1 until that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but they have a heck of a roster.
Yeah. I think part of their slow start goes to Ian Bennett, who's off to a slow start himself, kind of like Frank was.
Mm-hmm.
He has 5 goals and no assists through 6 games, which is very un-Ian Bennett-like.
Yeah, it's not the normal IB26 that we're used to seeing at all.
Now, is this just, trying to add more pieces like Utica did, and you're seeing that kind of growing and playing together and learning to play off of each other, or is this something more?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Mario Alvarez leads the team with 1.7 points per game. Or sorry, in total points, 10. Leite missed a couple games due to injury, but he leads in total points points per game at 2.3.
Mm-hmm.
Huffman's at 1.8. Carvalho's at 1.3. Yeah, so they still have other offensive options, but it's unusual to see it not coming. Not see Ian Bennett's name in there anywhere.
Right. Yeah, just not even really being in the conversation, but kind of an afterthought instead of being the primary discussion.
Yes. And then they have Willie B in goal. 4.84 goals allowed per game so far, and a 700 save rate. Pretty much typical Willie B stats.
And almost nearly on par with Coughlin, who, Coughlin has a 4.73 goals against and a 72%. Literally just about on par with each other. So there's really no differential between those two. You're looking at pretty much in goal, even ground. So it's what's going to make the difference is, I think it's going to come down to defense.
Yeah.
We've both got heavy offensive players, powerhouses on the front line. So, and a great goalkeeper for both teams. It's going to come down to defense.
Yeah, it's going to be which team can make the play when it matters.
Yes.
Milwaukee's 36 goals per game or 36 total goals this year are actually less than Baltimore. And their 31 goals allowed per game is again, middle of the pack, kind of where Utica's defense is. We've allowed 34. The difference is we've scored 58, which is just ridiculous to think about.
Yeah. But then, of course, you still have to have the conversation of the teams we played versus the teams that they have played. And, I mean, they've played Dallas, which would be, you could kind of say there's some equivalency there with Harrisburg to an extent.
St. Louis and Baltimore.
St. Louis and Baltimore. Yep, that was the one I was going to next. So, I mean, you could make those comparisons, and they've pretty much done the same thing we have for all of those games. I mean, the Dallas was a blowout. The last St. Louis game was basically a blowout at 14-7, and then they had that one close game against St. Louis in the beginning of the season, like we talked about. So, I mean, you could draw equivalencies there. We had a close game with Harrisburg in the beginning of the season, 5-7, and then everything else against both of those teams has essentially been a blowout. The closest one after that first game, the closest game was, you could say, either the Harrisburg 11-8 game or the Baltimore 5-2 game. Both of them were the only ones that were even close. So the teams are very comparable in their respective leagues, or in their respective games. They really are.
Mm-hmm. I think really the big difference is our offensive threats are all kind of clicking right now, especially if this is Frank turning a corner.
Mm-hmm.
They have Ricardo Carvalho leads their team with 7 goals at the moment, and then Ian Bennett has 5. Those guys, that other ones that I've mentioned up there, have a balance of assists and goals, or heavily favored assists.
Yep.
Whereas Utica has 4 guys already who have 10 or more points. And just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different players. Sorry, 11, because I almost missed Tim with his 2 points in 2 games. 11 players averaging a point or more per game.
Yep.
So we'll see what.
It's definitely a more spread out set of threats versus, we'll say, a couple where it's like, okay, we really have to pay attention to this person, and this person.
Yes.
Whereas you look at us and it's like, we have to pay attention to like 7 or 8 people. That's going to be hard.
Yes. I mean, it's still going to be one of the tougher arenas to play in.
Oh yeah,
Milwaukee always has a pretty good crowd. Though for a Thursday night, we'll see.
Oh, I think their fan base is loyal enough. It could be a Tuesday afternoon, and you'd have that place pretty much packed. The Milwaukee crowd is great.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one. This is obviously going to be the best offensive team that Utica has played this year.
Yes.
And defensively, probably the best as well.
Mm-hmm. We've said it before. This is where the season starts.
I mean, the one thing is playing an hour after they're on the road, so you don't even have the Bucks in town to draw a crowd.
Nope.
This is where Utica gets tested, and you want to silence some critics, you really have to take it to the wave. especially because some of the loudest critics have been Wave fans.
I mean, I get some of the, I get it. I get some of the criticism. I understand where a lot of these are coming from.
Yes.
Now is the time to, I hesitated for a second, but the reason is it's to put it in the immortal words of Tallahassee, it's time to nut up or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time to prove it. It's time to prove we're either we're a force to be reckoned with, or, what's it all been for?
Yeah,
essentially. So let's bring it.
I don't know. What would you like your prediction to be for this one?
I have one in mind. I actually have one in mind for the past few minutes.
Okay.
And I think it is going to be like a 7-5. I'm going to give it to Utica because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Got to give it to the boys, but it's going to be a back and forth. It's not going to be hey, we're going to run away with it early, or Milwaukee's going to run away with it. It's going to be a slog. It is going to be a back and forth fight to the finish. And I think that last seventh goal that's going to put the gap in there is going to come late.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be a 7-5 just battle. And I wish I could be there for it.
As much as in years past we'd say, hey, if you limit Ian Bennett, you can beat this team. I don't know if that's as much of a focus, at least until he shows that he's back to full speed.
Don't take your eye off him, though.
No, don't. He's still a threat.
Mm-hmm.
He had a hat trick already this year. I think that was against Monterey.
Yep.
So, he shows up. Let me check his game logs real quick.
Taking your eye off of Ian Bennett would be like taking their eye off of Tayu.
Yeah, that is crazy. So if you remember back earlier this year, when he was shut out against the Ambush and Comets back to back.
Yes.
Our friend of the pod, Phil, pointed out that it was the first time he'd been shut out back to back in regular season games since like 2018.
So it's definitely starting off as a kind of an off season for him.
Yeah, because he followed that up with the hat trick versus the Flash, a brace versus the Ambush in a game that Milwaukee won 14-7, and then against the Sidekicks and the Outlaws, he failed to find the net or collect an assist.
Which is so yet again very surprising.
Yeah, that is very, very strange to see him silenced like that.
Mm-hmm.
You figure at some point he's got to wake up. And I'd almost rather take my chance letting him wake up because Huffman and Carvalho worry me the most in this at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They're both playing well. Huffman killed Utica last year.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he was. I think he scored in every game we played. And if I remember correctly, he had the game-winning assist in the mini game.
Boy, now you're just tapping into some old knowledge. Well, not old knowledge.
Yes, he did. He assisted Sean Azqueta on the game-winning assist.
Okay.
Look at that game log. So he had the game-winning assist. He scored in the game before that. The game that we lost at Milwaukee in the playoffs, he had 2 goals and assist. City FC on the 19th, he had a goal. City FC, so he just seems to contribute at key moments against Utica. And we're familiar with Carvalho. He played for the Heat. He's played for the Tropics. We've seen a lot of him over the years.
Yes, we have. Oh, yeah.
Limiting them might be more important than limiting Ian Bennett in this game. I'm going to say Utica takes it, but it's going to be like 8-6, 9-7. You're going to have Utica try to boat race them, and if there's one team that can keep pace, we know it's one team in the East that can keep pace. It's Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Kansas City. Monterey. There are a few teams that can definitely keep pace, but Milwaukee on paper should be able to keep pace.
Yes, they should.
So, limit your mistakes. Don't give up dumb blue cards, and limit the impact players that aren't Ian Bennett.
And play till the end.
Yes. And then that brings that game to a close. And Saturday night, Utica makes their first trip to the Acesso Showwear Center in Kent, Washington, to take on the Tacoma Stars. We've faced Tacoma, I think, each of the last 2 seasons. The Stars started off the season 2-3. All 3 of their losses have come against San Diego, and their 2 wins have been against Baltimore and the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
This one kind of almost feels more like a trap. Almost feels more like a trap game to me.
Okay. You want to elaborate on that one?
Okay. So on paper, game you should win.
No.
But it doesn't seem to matter what sport it is. East Coast teams going to the West Coast seem to struggle. And it might just be because the games are kicking off at 10 p.m. on the East.
Right.
A lot of people, that might not be bedtime, but that is end of their day winding down.
It is definitely late.
And it's 2 days after you play Milwaukee.
Yep.
That's where that Utica depth is going to come in. And Tacoma, I mean, there's 2 big players on their team that come to mind. Goalkeeper Chris Toth.
Oh, yeah.
He's got part of it's rough defense, so he's giving up 7 goals per game this year, but his save rate's still 653. And in his last game out, he became the all-time save leader in the MASL, surpassing teammate Danny Waltman, who's been out with an injury.
Yep.
We saw him limit Utica to 5 goals in each of the 2 games he played against us when he was with the Empire over the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, Nick Pereira.
I knew that's where that one was going.
Yep. How can it not get there?
No, I couldn't agree more.
2-time MVP, the reigning MVP, 3 points per game this year, 10 goals and 5 assists in 5 games. The guy just seems to score at will, or get double teamed enough and have that soft touch to find other players at will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say he's definitely an opportunity maker as much as,
yes,
if not more than a goal scorer. I mean,
mm-hmm.
He definitely can help make it happen as well as just make it happen himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely someone to be mindful of in that game as well.
Absolutely. How do you see this one shaking out?
I mean, because it's going to be a later game,
mm-hmm.
Like you said, the depth is going to come into play. The time is going to come into play. At the same time, I mean, kind of thinking about it, the only team that they've played for us in the East that they've played against is Baltimore. And they handled Baltimore about as well as we've handled Baltimore. They handled them 7-4. So I think it's going to be another real close one. Potentially, we could potentially drop that one. But I'm going to actually... I'm going to stay positive, and I'm going to say it's going to be a 6-5 in overtime Utica win.
Okay.
But it could just as easily be a 6-5 overtime loss. I think it goes to overtime either way.
Okay. Yeah. Until we're proven otherwise, I got to take Utica to win.
Yep.
I do think lower scoring like you. I'm thinking this is going to be closer to what we saw in the Baltimore game at home. 5-3.
Okay.
I know I just talked about how, Pereira can find other people, but his 10 goals are kind of unusual for him. In his big seasons, I got to get it to reload here. Come on.
You mean his 10 assists?
10. I'm sorry. I have that backwards in my notes.
Yeah. I was going to say, he's got 10 assists.
He does 10 assists, yeah. Because every year that he leads the league and takes MVP and stuff like that, he's just scoring as his scoring comes mostly from assists. He is kind of the pass master for the league for, it's kind of crazy to think he could have been in Utica.
Yeah.
He did play for Syracuse very briefly before being traded to Tacoma, where he's made the Pacific West his home. But the guy just finds other people, and I don't know. I like the idea of man marking him with Mo or Nelson or even Frank.
Yep.
Just someone big bodied. And their offensive weapons outside of him don't scare me nearly as much as Utica or as like Milwaukee's depth. Take your chances. Limit him. You limit this team. And their defense is porous enough that you can win this game. Without having to be the kind of blitz style offense we've seen against Harrisburg and Baltimore.
Yeah, that's true. This is because of, hey, you basically got this one very strong offensive weapon. You really, it limits who you have to pay attention to. There's more weapons on, like you said, there's more weapons on Milwaukee that we really need to be paying attention to, that we have to spread our focus. Whereas thus far with the Stars, we have Pereira and technically we also have I believe it's Canale, who has 7 goals.
Alessandro Canale. Yes.
So that is another one that is it would be second in line for who we really potentially need to pay attention to. It definitely narrows your focus on who you really need to be looking at this game versus Milwaukee, who has more. And then of course it's just a matter at that point of getting past Chris Toth, which definitely seems it on paper, it should be an easier job than getting past Willie B.
Just because he doesn't have the defensive help that Willie B has.
Right. The defensive help. And, again, like I said, on paper, just based on goals against and save percentage. So, but yes, definitely he doesn't have that much of it. He doesn't have as much of a defense in front of him.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Canale. He didn't play last year. His best season came in 2021-22, where he had 16 goals and 5 assists in 15 games. But either he's off to a breakout season or he's due to cool off. If Juice Cox was their second best player last year, he's off to a slow start. This is a game where if you limit the complementary players, or try to make the complementary players win the game, you can walk out of there with a W. All right, Brandon, I think that's everything for us. Unless there's anything you want to add.
I don't think so. I mean, if they need somebody to cool them off, then we'll just bring the snow from upstate New York and call it a day. Shut up. We'll have snow. All right. They're gonna bring snow with them. All right. Just dang it. Why you gotta call me out like that?
Because pretty much everyone listening to this podcast knows that this has been the least wintry winter in New York in some time.
It's been mild. It's been green.
Yeah. Not even green. It's been brown.
Man, it's green here.
Muddy.
And muddy and gross.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't got anything else.
Hopefully next week when we're talking, we'll be able to talk about 2 wins. But like I said, tough places to play. You got a late night West Coast game and UMW Panther Arena. And like anyone that watches sports knows, anything can happen on any given day. So until next time, I am not Brandon. I am Matt.
Identity theft. He's trying to take it away from me. Listen, you know it's me when I'm just there you go. I'm Brandon.
Look, we had a superstructure violation. You didn't do that one either.
I didn't. I did it in the moment.
I did in my head in the moment, but
the other one shouldn't have been a superstructure. But I mean, it was because it skimmed it, but it shouldn't have been because it didn't impede play. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's everything for this one then. Thanks for listening. You know where to find us on socials. And until next time, go Utica.
Dogs.
Thank you for listening to the Keeper's Corner podcast on whatever podcast app you use. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to interact with us, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. We have a TeePublic shop where you can get UCFC player swag or help support the podcast. Thank you. We appreciate it. And one last thing. Go Utica City.